Everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon. I'm jamming today. I got a smooth dude on the channel today. Oh my God. And let me tell you, he is uh an administrator, probably the head man, something like that, of an organization that is nationally known for its study and preservation of history. This is what they do. He gonna tell it in its entirety and get you up to snuff. But I'm giving you a little entree of how we at Strong Inspiration, and I say we, even though I'm host and I don't have no people, but the people who come on the show are part of the family. This gentleman is now, no question. The people who watch the show are part of the family. The people who subscribe to the show are part of the family. And the people who don't do nothing but just be a part of it somehow are part of the family. This is because we are growing immensely because of all of us. And the mission is to preserve history, in particular Black history. But Black history is American history, is world history, is history all over, because we have had some influence on the history, no doubt about it. And that's what you're going to get out of this channel and what we're telling you. Don't dilute our role in history. And so, everybody, I want you to do this. We're going to hit the subscribe button right after this ends. It's free. It don't ask no information. All it let me know is that you like me and you like what I'm doing. And I appreciate that. Those who've done it already, I appreciate those who are considering it, and I appreciate those who will do it. Like this video, you're going to like it a lot. Good looking guy on the channel, everybody. He got a serious backdrop. Man, I'm telling you. I ain't going to ask him where he's at, but that looks nice. And then tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. Check it out. Don't be sitting somewhere. You at the restaurant, you eating and stuff like that. And then I know a little history, and then you tell them some history, and don't tell them where you got it from. Come on, let it, share it. Hit the link and all that other stuff. Do that, my friends. I'm going to go fast. I got a movie out. Took me 3 years to do this. Out of my life. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I named people who were business owners during slavery. Black folk, slaves who owned businesses, and then used the profits to buy their freedom. And I named so much more in my film. I took it to 40 cities across America on my own dime. Had a good time along the way, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. Places I had never been before, as far away. Y'all know I'm in Detroit. I went to Seattle, Washington. The movie is streaming on Amazon. I wrote a book on this topic. I'm this serious. I'm good at this stuff. And I do public speaking. Yes, you can see me on the show, but I do that. And I talk about using Black history as a way to prove the point. All right. The book is very good. Not because I wrote it. I've had people tell me that. Get you a copy of this. And I'm going fast. I'm a man. I know he's running. And if you buy the book and you don't learn nothing new, send me a message and I'll give your money back. A book with a money back guarantee. Boom, shaka laka. Here it is. But I'm not going to ask for the book back. I still ask you share it with somebody who is not as intelligent as you are. That's my guarantee of how confident I feel in my book. And I got a campaign. Every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. Because I did not hear the things that they talk about in my book, in my school, in my classroom. I was a decent student. Didn't know some of the stuff that's in here. So come on, everybody. And all this that you know that I do, along with, I got my own word art coming out too, is on my website, businessintheblack.net. Go there, everybody. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. It's my favorite word. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to my guest today. He's a strong man. Oh my God, I'm happy you're on the show. Come on, introduce yourself. Thank you for being on with me.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for the inspiration. And I always have a lot of love in my heart for Detroit. So sending love from other side of the country on the West Coast. My name is Scott Kuroshige. I am the executive director of the American Studies Association.
Okay. Let's go into this. I do this with all my guests. I ain't gonna keep you too long. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. You were born and raised where, and how did you get to like Black history?
I was born and raised in Southern California. Grew up in LA, in the LA area. And, I grew up in a very diverse part of the country. My classmates were, Black, Asian, Latinx. Obviously, there were still a lot of white students in school in LA then. But we learned almost nothing about our own history or each other's history. We just learned the basic Eurocentric, curriculum. It really wasn't until college where I had a chance to learn, much more about history, largely because I didn't take the study of history very serious in high school. It was actually quite boring, to me. And I felt when I went to college, I better learn something. I wasn't planning to major in history. But I was actually very fortunate. I went to college in Philadelphia. Really, my first mentor in the field of history was Dr. Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham, who was legendary African-American women's history, because I was just very fortunate that she was teaching, my intro to U.S. history class. I ended up, asking her to be my advisor. I ended up really focusing on study of Black history, particularly because, going from LA was, again, like I said, very multi-ethnic. What's going on? And Philly, as long, deep, rooted division between all white neighborhoods, all Black neighborhoods. And, I had seen racism before, but this was new to me, the fact that, the city was almost half white, half Black. And I didn't understand. That was new to me. Obviously, it's more common on the East Coast than the West Coast. And obviously very common in the history of Detroit, as I would study later. But that made me just think, boy, it's usually the other way around. People grow up thinking the country is white and Black, and then you have to learn more about, other groups. But for me, it was the opposite. My experience, what was normal to me growing up, was to be around a lot of people speaking a lot of different languages, different backgrounds, some people immigrants, some people American born. That really, again, a lot of that really made me want to understand the history of this country, particularly understanding that African-American history is central to this country. And to be quite honest, I went to a school that didn't have any Asian American history classes, didn't have Native American history classes or Latinx history classes, And so if I wanted to do any kind of critical examination of race and get the best scholars at the cutting edge, of studying racism in this country, I had to go through, Black studies, and I was really fortunate. That's why.
Let me ask you this question: How did you become such a conscious person to not look at Black history in a unequitable lens? When you grow up like that, do people tell you something, or you grow up with kids, you become apathetic, or how does that happen, or how did it happen for you?
Malcolm said the system brainwashes us, and certainly I was grown up simply to think that, this country was basically made by and for white people. Of course, I knew what the, Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Remember, my mom, Japanese American, was put in a concentration camp during World War II.
Really?
So, I was obviously led to understand that even though we have these rights on paper, in reality, we don't have all these rights. The system is not set up for us. We can't do anything we want to be. And so I grew up, with that sense that, if you're, Asian American, you can do certain things, but not other things. If you're Black in this country, you can do certain things, but not other things. If you're white, you can do pretty much anything you want. And so, and the other thing that happens growing up is we get pitted against each other,
Right.
And so, if you live in a society where white supremacy is the norm, then, again, all the other groups, whether it's because of, labor issues trying to pit us against each other, whether it's because of political issues, cultural issues. And so I think when you don't learn your own history and you don't learn other people's history, you grow up with all kinds of stereotypes and prejudices, about everybody. And
Okay.
it really was in college that I had to recognize my own ignorance. I
Yes.
hadn't read, and I read the newspaper, I had read the comics, the sports section. I
Yes.
wasn't reading
Yes.
the
I
news,
got you.
even the mainstream news. And so to have that opportunity to realize, I had never had a chance to take an African American history class. I had never had a chance, to learn about activist struggles, or how, because that's the other thing. I voted for the first time in 1988, and then when the election was over, I realized, well, what do you do now?
Right. Right.
If
I
you don't
got you.
like the outcome, what do you do? And then that made me realize, oh, there's a whole nother way to think about politics that comes from the history of activism and grassroots struggle and community organizing. So that combination of, personal experience,
Yes.
meeting other activists on campus in the community, um, beginning to think more about history in a different way, being exposed to new mentors, all of that made me realize that, this was really a time, to change the direction of my life from
Yeah. I love it.
simply thinking, you're just going to work for someone else and make money for someone else,
Yes.
or,
Yes.
you can't really aspire to your best dreams, or you really can't even aspire to full liberation.
I got a question for you. Have you ever been in an instance, because you are astute like you are, and you were standing around the bar or wherever it was, and someone said something that you had to correct them from a historical perspective?
Oh, of course, that happens all the time.
Oh, really? And
Sure.
so you put your, I don't say put your life on the line, but you put your whatever on the line to say, hold on, now I know better than that. And you've had to do that?
Oh, sure. I mean, of course, it happens in person, it happens on social
Yes.
media, it happens in the classroom. I mean, I had a student once insisting to me in the classroom that W.B. Du Bois was white, and that he's a really important example of how white people
Really?
advanced the civil rights movement. And enough people don't know that. And I was just like, son, you're completely out to lunch.
Yeah. So are you a professor? What's your career path, may I ask?
I'm not currently working as a professor, but I have worked as a professor for over 20 years in
Oh,
my past experience.
teaching history in particular?
History, Asian American studies, Black studies, ethnic studies, American studies.
Do you have
All.
a particular focus that you teach? You mentioned a few of them. Are you an expert over any one over the other?
Um, you know, uh, we all have our areas of research focus, but my
Yes.
point is that you really all of these topics intersect so much. So, for instance, let's
Oh,
say
okay.
let's say I'm studying Asian American history. Okay, well, you can't understand Asian American struggles for citizenship rights unless you understand the history of race and oppression and struggle of Black people for civil rights in this country. So
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
really?
So uh, unless you, and this is sort of what a lot of my history books are about.
Sure.
Uh, if you want to be an expert in Asian American history, you can't just study Asian people. You have to understand. Obviously, you got to understand,
Yes.
whiteness, white
Yes.
supremacy, but you
Yes.
also got to understand, that Frederick Douglass was talking about the right of Chinese immigrants to come to this country in the 19th century. You have to
Oh,
understand
really?
that the 1965 Immigration Act, which ended these, racist quotas, barring or severely restricting Asian people from coming to the U.S., that happened during the Civil Rights era. It wasn't coincidental that
Yes.
that rights, for Asian Americans were oftentimes linked to, decisions by the Supreme Court, or policies that were made in response to social movements, or advocacy that was made, on the basis of the 14th Amendment, which of course is a
Yeah.
Reconstruction Amendment,
Right.
but applies broadly in the aftermath to issues of women and their rights,
I got you.
control of their bodies, or immigrants, or limited or non-English speakers, their rights in the classroom. So we really need to understand
I love
that
it.
that these issues are interconnected, if we want to understand, history generally.
Let me ask you this, and we're gonna get to the association and the event.
Yeah.
I promise you that for sure. That's the basis of it. Let me ask you: Black people went to Asia back in early civilization. What's that story?
Mm. I am not really
Okay, okay,
historian of that era.
okay, okay.
Um, but what certainly we can say is, we need to move beyond a Eurocentric framework of understanding civilization as having, started in Europe, and then you all the rest of us needed to be educated, and civilized by European people. So I would say that's really important. That the fact that, um, cultures from what, later we call the third world, the global south,
Yes,
Afro-Asian worlds, though there are important people doing that type of research that
I
really
got you.
helps us understand whether it was, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, or 50 years ago. All of that is part of understanding, who makes up the majority of humanity, right? And
Yes,
and yet, we've had, in this country, we've been forced to focus on the history of actually the global minority, which
uh,
which is Europeans and
yeah,
white
sure.
Americans, rather than the global majority. And that's a paradigm shift that I think is really important, And so I just think more broadly, this is what we do in American studies. It's not that we study one specific topic. It's really at this point, you know, in the past, it might have been, this is what makes America great and exceptional and unique. Now it is much more about understanding that there are all these perspectives that have been erased, marginalized, silenced, and American Studies Association is about creating a space where those liberated voices can come together, to learn from each other, to
I love
exchange,
it.
dialogue, and really to put forward a different perspective. And of course, again, it's not just the U.S. I mean, Italy
Yeah,
just elected a fascist. And you had this issue. So you've got this threat right now all around the world of
yes, I love
authoritarianism,
it.
fascism, white
Yeah,
supremacy.
yes,
And there needs to be these spaces where, we understand this connection, between the past, the present, the future, the
yes,
connection between, American Studies Association is a place where you have, conscious scholars who understand that we can't solve the world's problems simply in the ivory tower around the
yes,
university,
yes,
that
yes,
oftentimes we need to be learning from the people in the community, and of course that's
yes,
how ethnic studies and Black studies, Asian American studies were created. It was
yes.
based on the idea that the university was miseducating people, right?
Yeah,
and
okay.
and, and that the sources, the methods, the pedagogy had to come much more, from the struggle. Of course, the freedom
Yeah,
schools in
yeah.
Mississippi with SNCC were a very good example of that, and
Well,
become a
well,
model for a lot of the work people do in ethnic studies today.
when was the American Studies founded and by who, and what was the main premise to even start such an organization?
Yeah, so we go back to like 1951. So at that
Okay,
time, a lot of the founders were at places like Harvard and Yale. And these departments then were mostly, privileged white men.
yes,
What was innovative though was a couple things. Was that they realized that you can't just separate yourself. Okay, we'll study history, we'll study literature, we'll study social. That you actually had to break down those really false boundaries that the university and the academy had set up in order to create this richer dialogue. So that was an important innovation. Again,
okay,
they didn't have a very diverse professoriate at that time,
sure, sure,
but
sure.
they were beginning to approach questions intellectually in more innovative ways. And then the other thing that I was pointing out, some of the folks at the cutting edge of American studies, were really recognizing the need, to be engaged with community struggles. So for instance, during the 1930s, some of the best folks in American studies were involved in things like, the Flint sit-down strike, or other worker struggles, recognizing, helping to create worker schools, or
Okay, I love it.
seeing these labor struggles as opportunities for, for professors and students create alliances, with workers. So that was important. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to say, it was entirely homogenous, because there were some folks within American studies who were, focused on working class issues, who were focused on, challenging the typical elitism within
Oh,
academia.
I got you. I got you. So now, is your organization a historic? Uh, does your organization do history, or it's even more than that?
Yeah, so the whole point of American studies was saying, instead of starting with your discipline, let's start with this, focus on understanding, America, which they would say at the time,
Okay.
from
Okay.
these multidisciplinary perspectives.
Oh, I
Uh,
got you. I
and we've
got you.
broadened that out since then. So, there weren't a lot of law professors or public health professors involved in the 50s. Then it would have been mainly English professors, history professors. It was much more of a humanities focused association, whereas we've started to move much towards recognizing that, again, we need to understand. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. If we don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah, I got
the
you. I got
health
you.
and medicine people, we're not going to understand, oppression and struggles for equity in this day and age. Obviously, we need people that speak languages and read languages other than English, right? We need
Okay.
perspectives from people from around the world. Um, we need to understand, people who have, again, who've been organizers.
Oh,
Um,
I got you.
we need to understand people who have a psychological perspective. So
I got you.
we're really a site that now goes beyond the professional training that people get simply to be experts in one field of academia, uh, and a place where we come together, again, both to bring, ideally, the best methods, perspectives, research experience from the academy, but also recognize the academy is not always, or in many cases,
Yeah. Okay.
the final word.
Yeah.
That
Right. I got
actually,
you.
what academic research has done is distort or exploit, communities that are off campus, particularly
So,
communities of
so
color.
once you do one, okay. I guess my first question: you all come together. Y'all have regional chapters in every state, almost.
Some are more active than other. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
regional
Yeah.
chapters. Yeah.
Okay. You got chapters. You have the adult chapters and college chapters, or they can both intermingle, or is that separate?
We don't have specific chapters on campuses.
Okay.
Those would be independent departments and programs and centers, that
Okay.
exist at a lot of universities. We have the National Association, and really a lot of what we're known for is we have one of the top journals
Okay.
in the
Okay. I was
field.
going to
It's
ask
called
you that.
Yeah, it's called American Quarterly. So 4 times a year, we come out with, really some of the top research being published, peer-reviewed, scholarship in the field of American studies. So it's
Oh,
really
I
the
got you.
oldest association, the most prominent journal. And it really is a journal that people look to, to read on the most state-of-the-art scholarship in the field, but obviously people aspire to have their work published in our journal,
Oh,
American
I
Quarterly.
got you. So, and then you all have a quarterly or just the annual conference?
We just have the annual, yeah,
The
yeah.
annual
Some
conference.
of the regional chapters might have events throughout the year, but we
Okay.
have the one a year, and this is our first one in person since 2019 because the pandemic disrupted a lot of our
And this
time.
one, the one that's coming up this year is what's the dates and where is it being held?
November 3rd through 6th, New Orleans, Louisiana. So just
Okay.
less than 2 months away.
Right.
We rotate the site every year. We've even done it, internationally. So next year we're going to be in Montreal, Canada, because
Okay.
again, you don't want to. We're in the heart of the empire here, right? We're in the
Okay.
belly of the beast,
Sure.
but you also
Sure.
want to learn from folks, on the margins. So we'll be going to Puerto Rico.
Oh,
In a few years,
really?
and then in 2024 we'll be going to Baltimore. So we really try to move the conference around to get those different perspectives, engage with different communities, an opportunity for us to learn, from the places we go to.
When at your conference you have different seminars and symposiums. Do you have vendors selling anything of any sort per se?
Yeah, all of the above.
All
Yeah.
of the above.
So
You have,
usually
go ahead.
each year there'll be a theme. So there'll be a
Okay,
core group of events and speakers around a particular theme. So this year's theme developed, by the program committee is called "The Roof is on Fire." You know where that
okay,
expression comes from.
yeah,
But I'll just read from some of the call that went out.
yeah.
Uh, we're inviting um, participants to engage with the world as it is and as we want it to be, right? So we're not just studying the problems, right, in the history. We're studying and projecting where we want to go. Something is broken. Whether or not it can be repaired might not be the right question, right? It's not about,
Okay,
restoring the old system or preserving the old system. This is an homage to the cultures and knowledges too often dismissed or taken. Touch the beat, move without instruction, abandon your isolation. We come together to continue the creation of something else altogether. So,
okay,
this is a lot. If you're familiar, with the work, artistic work, scholar work of Afrofuturists,
yes,
speculative fiction. You probably may have known my friend in Detroit, Adrian Marie Brown's did a lot of work on speculative fiction, drawing on influence from Octavia Butler and others. This is, and again, there's a lot of younger folks. Well, I'm,
okay,
been around a little while. So there's folks
yeah,
younger than me
sure,
driving a lot of these conversations that are
sure.
drawing new sources of inspiration, right? And again, recognizing that, yeah, there are a lot of problems going on right now, but
I got you.
we need to, as you do, obviously, with your work, we need to find sources of inspiration, that will move us in new directions.
Oh, I got you. Can non-members come to your conference if people watch this and there's a non-member registrational fee, or you have to
Yeah,
be a
yeah, yeah,
member?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
you can go to
okay,
our
okay,
website, the ASA, so
yeah,
theasa.net.
okay,
And we have a sliding scale registration. We
yes,
understand that, if you are a full professor at an elite university, you have much more means to
yes,
pay to come
yes,
to conference. You probably have a research budget for
yeah,
this, versus someone who's a community-based scholar, or is a student, or is
yes,
unemployed,
yes.
or
I
has a
got you.
working class job. So yeah, we have a sliding scale registration both for our membership and for the conference.
I got you. I got a couple more questions. Y'all got a boogie down night where you do a little dance or something like that, reception or?
We do, yeah, yeah. This
Okay, you
year's
do.
committee in particular has a lot of interesting things planned.
Oh,
So
okay.
as New Orleans, rich history, rich community.
Yes, yes,
Obviously, Black history and culture are a big part of it. So a lot of
yes.
exciting things planned. Working with like local bookstore owners,
Yeah. Oh, really?
local
Okay.
museums, local, sites of culture, food. So all of that, yeah, I invite you to just
Okay.
take a look, at our website program. A
Okay.
lot of these events are included with the conference registration. A couple of
Yes.
them do require, additional tickets. But also say one thing in particular. There's a group that the program committee has really thought was really strategic to work with called Women with a Vision. And this is a group started really by Black women in New Orleans that's really been in the forefront of raising issues of social justice related to, racism, sexism, and now, of course,
All right.
with the Supreme Court decision, outlawing the right of women to choose,
Yes.
they're really doing a lot of work in that. So again, it's an opportunity not just for people to, take a tour, and buy a ticket that would support a local organization. More than just, the dollars, which are important. It's about, the knowledge, the education that we can get from community activists who have been doing this for 5, 10, 15,
I
20,
got
30
you.
years,
I
oftentimes their
love
whole
it.
lives, right?
Yeah.
And whereas some folks, again, you learn a lot by doing research and teaching at the university. You can't be in the community full time
Yeah, right. I got
like
you.
some of these organizers are. And so we have a lot to learn from each other.
Is there there's a lady on that I've interviewed, Shana Redmond. Hope I'm saying her right, her name, first name right. She'll be inducted as the president at this conference.
Dr. Shauna Redmond of
Yes,
Columbia University
yes.
is already the president, so she'll
Oh,
be
she's
presiding.
already the
She'll
president.
be presiding. Yeah. So
Oh,
she was at the forefront of developing this year's theme. Coordinating with the organizing committees and the leadership. Yeah, and we're just very fortunate to have a scholar
okay.
of her reputation. And expertise, and commitment at the forefront,
I love it.
of our
Yeah,
association.
yeah. Everybody she's on the show, she talks about Paul Robeson in her discussion, and so is there a hold on? I'm a decently smart guy, but if I hang out with you all, I got to really be smart, don't I? I mean, do you smart up the conversation where it gets deep for people? Is
You
that some
know,
of what it is?
the knowledge comes out of a dialogue, so just
I
like we're
got you.
talking here today, if
Yes.
I'm in a dialogue with someone who's from outside of the university, I probably have a lot more to learn, or as much to learn
I love
uh,
it.
from you and that person as I can teach. And most of the
Yes, I
time,
love it.
listen, you man know, I worked
Yeah.
many years with Grace Lee Boggs in Detroit.
I
Um,
know.
and uh, when she was working with CLR James and the Johnson Forest tendency, they had this concept called third layer schools, and it came from Lenin's concept of the party is the first layer, the union the second layer, the workers are the third layer. The point being, though, that if you aspire to be a leader, political leader, educational leader, so on, party leader, that you had to recognize you didn't know everything, especially you're claiming to help lead a workers
Right.
movement or people's
That's right.
movement. And so the third layer schools were where the leaders would sit in the desks and take notes.
Oh,
Wow,
I love it.
Jimmy Boggs, Chrysler auto worker, originally from Marion Junction, Alabama, and then living on the east side of Detroit. Folks like Jimmy Boggs would be the teachers, telling
I
CLR
love
James,
it.
Grace Lee Boggs, and these people with advanced educations, and what they needed to learn that their experience couldn't teach them, right?
I love it.
And so I think that same rule, or principle applies today, right? Whether it's learning from young people, learning from artists, learning from organizers, learning from workers, obviously, again, so much has gone on. I mean, I've written some about this, in
Yes.
Detroit, in Flint. I mean, you can have an expert studying, the water issues in Flint because they have a science degree,
Right.
or
Right.
they understand microbiology. But if you don't talk to the people who had
Right.
that
I
brown
got you.
water
I
coming out of the
got you. I
faucet,
got you.
if you don't talk to the folks in Detroit being evicted, if you don't
Right.
talk to the folks having their water shut off, you're not going to have the full understanding of what's going on, right?
I got you. Last question. You've written several books. Is that the case?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
need to be
So
the focus here.
yeah. No, but you've written several books, and so you're an expert, and you're a scholar too. We could say that.
Again,
Yeah, we can take
I have
liberties.
some knowledge that I think I've developed over the
Yes.
years.
Yeah. We're gonna take that liberty because I'm saying everybody, this is what we do here, strong inspirations, man. We get the head guy, we get the educated a scholar, expert, and all that on the show. That's what we have here. And so we all need to, those who can, come down and attend that conference. And they will walk away a better person because what?
I think it's an opportunity, for people that are really interested in scholarly research to see what folks are doing. Again, like I said, at the cutting edge,
I got you.
not trying to reproduce what got people tenure or, jobs 10, 20, 30 years ago, but really looking at, what are the most important things we need to study and learn and teach today. And if you're one of those persons that got turned off by scholarly research because you didn't think it was relevant because it was Eurocentric or was male dominated, or it
Okay.
didn't talk about the type of diversity that allows for discussions of transgender issues or sexuality issues. If you thought, scholarly research was a place where simply the dominant culture,
Right.
imposes its view on others, then yeah, that's a good reason to check out the American Studies Association.
There you
because
go.
we are a site where the views from the margins, where the peoples from the margins, perspectives, topics, sources from the margins really take center stage. I mean,
Oh, I love
to
that.
quote the late Bell Hooks, whose birthday
Yes.
just passed,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
really
sure,
need to move, right, the
sure.
perspectives and the people from the margin to the center.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for coming on the show. Give us that website again so people can know what is it again?
Yeah, so we are the American Studies Association. People call us the ASA, and that's our website,
Okay.
THEASA.net.
.net. Everybody, this is what I do with Strong Inspirations. I told you it's going like this because I had to get deep. I had to think deeper. And I did my very best, my friends, with a deep gentleman on the show. So everybody hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video. I know you liked it. You probably loved it, but there is no love button. Hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up, 3-4 of them a week. Every now and then. I'm not going to tell you when because my heart just says now it's time for some sharing. And then tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Go to that website. I say to you, my brother, and I say this with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing. Leading that organization, opening up those minds. Telling some people, say, hey, I know you very smart individual, but if you don't have those who aren't as smart as you share their knowledge, you don't have the complete picture. And somehow in your background, growing up in that multicultural community of LA, which I love LA, you got it. And you're a dichotomy of both of those. And that's what you bring out in that organization. So thank you again for coming on, everybody. With that, I'll say bye-bye, we out.
Well, thank you.